I've solved it. I've been staring at it for a couple of weeks now. Actually, since the bins. Since the 7 bins. Do you remember 7 bins Sunak? Announcing that they were going to get rid of the requirement for you to have 7 bins that you haven't got. And then announcing, I think it was Claire Coutinho, who was on with Nick earlier today. She weighed in on this one and got completely humiliated, quite rightly, by Sophie Ridge on Sky News, because she was talking about the abolition of a meat tax that didn't exist. And I was trying to work out what was going on. I've been trying to sort of pin down why outwardly sensible people would ally themselves with such utter absurdity. And of course, when you come to Suella Braverman, which we will sadly have to do in a moment, you can drop the words outwardly sensible and instead replace them with absolutely crazy. But what's the plan? Is there a plan? How many times have we sat here together of a morning and essentially pontificated on whether or not we are observing utterly unplotted chaos or failing to appreciate the secret, possibly sinister master plan that underpins the actions of a government? But I know what it is, and I've even got a pithy little catchphrase to describe it. And I think it fits almost everything that's going on. Target first, policy second. Right, let me talk you through it, okay? So we'll start with the 7 bins and the meat tax. So after that curious victory in Uxbridge, which many people attributed to a successful propaganda campaign completely misrepresenting the ultra-low emission zone, as we've seen subsequently, huge numbers of people who thought that they were going to be affected by it are not, which is why no one's talking about it anymore. 97% drop, I think, in social media chatter. But Tories are desperate. So actually, we'll go even further back. The cupboard is bare. You've been in power for 13 years. It's almost impossible to cast yourself as an agent of change or to cast yourself as entirely unconnected to any bad things that are currently happening. You've had 13 years to sort out and then put whatever your favourite policy is in the space that follows those words. You've had 13 years to sort out the NHS. You've had 13 years to sort out growth. You've had 13 years to sort out the economy. You've had 13 years to sort out homelessness. You've had 13 years to sort out waterways. You've had 13 years to sort out energy costs. You've had 13 years. Now, some of this stuff, arguably, governments can't sort out. But then that goes off the table immediately because it shouldn't be a subject of policy making anyway. So you've been in power for 13 years. Most people are, I think it's fair to say, unless you're very, very rich or you got a COVID contract, most people are not very impressed by the way their lives have gone or the role that government has played in their lives of late. And the people who've been in power for 13 years have little choice but to try to disassociate themselves from it. It's why I think some people still trying to pull up, what's his name, Hands, is it Greg Hands, Conservative Party chairman, still trying to resurrect that old note that Liam Byrne left in the Treasury about there not being any money left. I mean, you might as well tattoo desperate across your forehead if you're going to be doing stuff like that. So the cupboard is completely bare. You can't really announce anything for 2 reasons. There's nothing left to announce, except perhaps policies designed to undo damage done by policies previously introduced by your own party, in which the current Prime Minister, of course, was until relatively recently Chancellor of the Exchequer. So do you see the madness? You see the problem? We've got to announce meaningful change. Meaningful change to what? Meaningful change to the state of the nation. What, you mean the nation you've been governing for 13 years? Oh, yeah. We've got a bit of a problem there. So what can they do instead? The cupboard is bare. Worse than bare, actually. The cupboard contains pretty irrefutable evidence that the people who've been in charge of the country for 13 years are probably, at least in large part, responsible for the state of the country after 13 years. Well, we're pretty good at hate, aren't we? You know, we've been essentially remoulded in the style of Nigel Farage. So hate politics, that's probably our best chance of holding on to the base. As long as Farage doesn't pop up again to the right of the right of the right of the party, then our best chance of avoiding electoral oblivion next year is probably to cling like Billy-O to the sort of far-right sympathising rump of our own party, or at least the hate-filled rump, the easily manipulated, the people that can be persuaded that inequality is not caused by epic misdistribution of wealth, it's caused by Polish lorry drivers, or the people who can be persuaded that the state of the economy is not a consequence of mismanagement and false priorities, it is instead a consequence of desperate souls coming over the channel in dinghies. You're the kind of people that if we give them some red meat to gnaw on, then as soon as they've put their teeth in, they'll be gnawing away like there's nobody's business. So target first, policy second. You can almost imagine them sitting around a table and saying, who do they hate? And someone puts their hand up and says, they hate the eco-warriors at the moment. Just have a look at the Daily Mail or some other sort of right-wing outlet. Who do they? Oh, they hate the eco. All right, what can we do as a policy that shows them that we share their hatred of eco warriors? Well, first of all, we'll bring in policies that make it very hard for them to protest, which is quite good. But that, of course, robs us of the media hit of them actually protesting. So you need them to be above the parapet in order to be able to throw rotten tomatoes at them. But unfortunately, we've kind of banned them from putting their heads above the parapet. So we've got a bit of a tricky bit there. I know. Let's say that we're getting rid of things that the eco-warriors wanted. Okay, that's a good idea. What can we get rid of that the eco-warriors wanted? Well, I suppose we could promise to get rid of the ultra-low emission zone, couldn't we? Yeah, okay, that's good. That could be, if you're, a desperate London mayoral candidate, you could probably build a campaign around that and just hope that it doesn't continue to disappear into the reeds as an issue that the population is actually cross about. Okay, I've got a better idea. Why don't we announce that we're getting rid of things that the eco-warriors wanted, even though they don't actually exist? Tell me more about that, Tristram. Well, how about a meat tax? Let's tell them there's a tax on meat, but we are the people to get rid of it. Yeah, do you know what? I think this could... No, and then someone else at the table goes, there's no way they're going to fall for absolute crapola like that. And someone else at the table goes, hello, can I introduce you to Brexit? And Boris Johnson and Liz Truss, these people will fall for anything if we package it right and sign up all the client journalists. So what else could we do? We're going to abolish a meat tax. That doesn't exist. How about bins? People don't like recycling. Or eco-warriors really like recycling. So let's attack recycling. Yeah, okay. So I, Rishi Sunak, am going to abolish the rule that says you need 7 bins. I'm also going to abolish the meat tax. Hooray, hooray, hooray. So do you see what I mean? Target first, policy second. Policy nonsense doesn't matter, because if people hate the target enough, they'll cheer the policy. What do we come to next? Front page of the Daily Telegraph today. Benefits claimants, yes! Benefits claimants back on the front page. Fantastic. Hello, political editor, Daily Telegraph. Yes, Downing Street here. Do you think you could put benefits claimants back on the front page tomorrow? We're a little bit desperate. Absolutely no problem at all. Have you got a policy, sir? Yes. We're checking their bank accounts every week to see whether they've got any savings. Splendid idea. Any idea how much money that's going to save? Absolutely no clue whatsoever. It's a completely invented policy. How on earth could we possibly cost it? Just stick 500 million quid in the story. Okay, so it's going to save 500 million pounds over 5 years. Off the top of my head, that's about 45 to 50 years to claw back some of the money you gave away during COVID frauds. Magnificent, but you see, it targets benefits claimants. Target first, policy second. Policy nonsense. Doesn't matter, because if you hate benefits claimants enough, then this policy is going to work for you. We'll get on a little later today to a story that makes the saga of Keir Starmer's disappearing poppy look almost sensible. Problems or fears that Remembrance Day services or Remembrance Day commemorations may be disrupted exist entirely in the imaginations of people who target first, policy second, people marching in solidarity with Palestinians, or, broadly speaking, and a lot of people there will be Muslims. The base that we're appealing to, they don't like Muslims. Let's do something that makes Muslims look bad and claim that there are concerns that a Remembrance Day commemoration may be disrupted by a pro-Palestinian solidarity march, and sort of gloss quickly over the fact that Remembrance Sunday is on Sunday and the pro-Palestinian march is on Saturday. So Armistice Day is on Saturday. There will be some commemorations, but generally speaking, what they're trying to do is drum up the idea that a march taking place on Saturday is going to somehow disrupt a ceremony taking place on Sunday. Target Muslims. Policy, police should do more, or let's move it to Balham. I don't know, but mission accomplished. Target identified, policy announced. Rubbish policy. And that brings us inevitably, inexorably to Suella Braverman, who has made it clear over the last couple of days that the best way to get rid of the problem of people sleeping in tents is to ban tents. And the reason I've tried to be funny for the last 10 minutes is because that is a story that makes me want to cry. I cannot believe how low our country has been brought, that a Home Secretary thinks that she can appeal to her base, quite possibly correctly, by attacking homeless people and promising to make their lives even worse than they are already. Nobody likes to see tents on the streets of London. Nobody ever does, in fact, when Labour are in power. The successful reduction in homelessness during the last Labour government was a triumph for the ages. Homelessness always goes up under the Tories. When I moved to London in the early 1990s, Lincoln's Inn Field, which is a beautiful Georgian square in the sort of Holborn region of the capital, was a shanty town. I couldn't believe it. I'd led a relatively sheltered life from sort of boarding school, and then a rather less sheltered life during a brief sojourn in Chorlton-cum-Hardy, living in a shared house. But I arrived in London very wet behind the ears, and I couldn't quite believe that on the doorstep of the London School of Economics was what could only be described as a shanty town, where people weren't just living in tents, they were living in makeshift shacks made out of pallets and things like that. That, of course, was after 12, 13 years of Tory rule. Do you see a theme? I just said that was after 13 years of Tory rule. There was a shanty town in the middle of London. And now, after 13 years of Tory rule, we're seeing tents springing up in our cities and on our streets and in towns up and down the country. And what does the Tory Home Secretary think would be the best solution to the problem of people sleeping in tents? She wants to ban tents. Target, homeless. Policy, ban tents. Policy is nonsense, but if people hate the target enough, then they'll cheer it to the rafters. As long as you can ensure that they'll forget that normally when you're slagging off refugees, you like to say that we should be looking after our homeless veterans instead. You just got to, as long as you can keep that little bit of the rhetoric of bile in the background, as long as nobody reminds you that normally when they're coming up with reasons to turn the British population against desperate refugees, the false analogy that they use is homeless military veterans. So they like to say, why aren't we helping our own? Why aren't we helping the homeless military veterans on the street instead of putting these refugees up in 17-star hotels? So she's possibly misstepped slightly on this, but I noticed that she very quickly came out and used the word foreigner to describe the people sleeping in tents, an observation for which she has absolutely no basis whatsoever. There will be people of every background sleeping on the streets at the moment. That's how homelessness works. That's what happens when the safety net is so threadbare and moth-eaten that people will fall through it without barely noticing it exists. But congratulations. You now live in a country where the Home Secretary thinks homelessness is a lifestyle choice. I bet you didn't think you were going to wake up here last week, did you? A country where one of the holders of the 4 great offices of state in our wonderful country thinks that homelessness is a lifestyle choice. 16 minutes after 10 is the time. Why does homelessness always go up under the Tories? 0345 6060 973. And to answer that question, you will need to know a little bit about it. And I hope you're out the other side. But if you're not, of course, I need to hear from you as well. What is that? Why does that happen? And I make no apology for doing this. I used to say that I felt bad because it seems a little lazy. But when something completely incomprehensible happens under our noses, I think we ask each other if we can explain it. Can you explain? I've given you my theory, target first, policy second. Who can we attack today? We can't do the refugees again because we did them on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of last month. So we need to attack someone else today. And we can't do the eco-warriors because 7-bin Sunak's got that sewn up at the moment. So I'm the Home Secretary. I need someone new to attack. Let's just do the homeless. Let's just attack the homeless. How are we going to attack the homeless? They've got nothing. Well, some of them have got tents. Bingo. Let's take their tents away. Let's ban the tents. Let's ban charities from giving them tents so that they can, sleep out in the open like good old-fashioned proper tramps, good old-fashioned proper British tramps. They're sleeping out in the open under the stars. Is she evil? Is that a word you can use in this context? Or am I missing something? It wouldn't be the first time. Can you explain why Suella Braverman has decided to target the tents of homeless people as her next policy proposal? Or if you want to step a little bit further back from the fray, can you tell me what's going on? 0345 60 60973. To be, I suppose, a little bit more substantive, how does it happen? I don't know. I look, in the simplest of terms, I can imagine what needs to happen for you to become homeless, right? Your financial circumstances change, your relationship breaks down, your addiction runs out of control. But there's not really any guarantee that those things are more likely to happen under a Conservative government or under a Labour government. So what is it? What do they do to our society? Because most of us don't know. Most of us are not invested in this side of our world, our shared world. What do the Tories do to our society that causes homelessness to rocket? What changes do they make? What are the policies that bring about these tragedies? Okay? So there's two ways into this. How do you get into a problem like this?